Before Tommy Lucchese became the boss of the crime family that still bears his name, he served for 20 years as an underboss to low-key mobster Tommy Gagliano, a man so mysterious that many books and documentaries often use a photo that isn't even him. Let's check it out. I'm James Gladwish and welcome to OC Shorts, bringing you detailed historical snapshots of the American Mafia and other organised crime. Feel free to subscribe if you like that sort of thing. Today, we're going to take a quick look at a myth surrounding New York crime boss Tommy Gagliano. Tommaso Tommy Gagliano became the boss of what we now call the Lucchese Crime Family after the murder of Joseph Pinzolo in 1930. During his 2-decade reign as a boss of one of New York's 5 families, Tommy Gagliano kept a very low profile, and very little is known about him compared to other mafia bosses of the time, making him one of the most mysterious mob bosses in New York history. There are very few photos of Gagliano, and one of the images that is said to be him isn't actually Tommaso Gagliano at all. But before we get to that, here are some quick pieces of information on the rarely discussed Tommy Gagliano. Tommaso Gagliano was born in May 1883 in Corleone, Sicily. Records indicate that on the 18th of May 1905, he arrived in the United States from Palermo. In the mid-1920s, Gagliano, along with Antonio Monforte, formed the United Lathing Company. Interestingly, one of the 7 directors of this company was former Mafia boss of bosses Giuseppe Morello. The crime group that Gagliano was involved with was led by Gaetano Tommy Reina, and during the Castellammarese War, this group started on the side of Joseph Masseria. Tommy Reina was gunned down in February 1930, and boss of bosses Giuseppe Joe the Boss Masseria replaced him with Joseph Pinzolo, a move that displeased family members Tommy Gagliano and Tommy Lucchese, who felt that Gagliano should have been made boss. In September 1930, Gagliano and Lucchese orchestrated the murder of family boss Joseph Pinzolo, and he was gunned down by Girolamo Bobby Doyle Santucci in an office that belonged to Tommy Lucchese. Tommy Gagliano then became the boss of what we now call the Lucchese Crime Family. Tommaso Gagliano and his underboss Tommy Lucchese then switched their family's allegiances and started supporting Joe Masseria's rival Salavatore Maranzano. After both Joe Masseria and Salavatore Maranzano had been murdered in 1931, Tommaso Gagliano remained as the boss of his family, and he had a seat on the commission. In February 1932, Tommaso Gagliano was indicted for conspiracy and perjury to evade taxes. As one newspaper reported, others indicted were Tommaso Gagliano of 638 East 227th Street, Bronx, accused of neglecting to report a net income of $270,000. Gagliano was sentenced to 2 1-year and 3-month sentences to run concurrently in Atlanta Penitentiary. He was then released from prison in 1933. Tommaso Tommy Gagliano then pretty much drops off the radar until he passed away in February 1951. He was succeeded as boss of the family by his underboss, Tommy Lucchese. As I mentioned earlier, there are very few confirmed photos of Tommaso Gagliano. Many books and documentaries often use this photo and state that it is the New York crime boss. However, Mafia historian J. Michael Niotta, author of mob history books including The Los Angeles Sugar Ring and Los Angeles Underworld, has conducted excellent research and has stated that the photo which is often said to be Tommaso Gagliano is not actually him at all. This image is in fact of a New Orleans-based mobster by the name of Gaetano Gagliano. Gaetano Gagliano was the brother of Giuseppe Gagliano, and both were Italian-born mobsters who operated in New Orleans. The Gagliano brothers were said to be heavily involved in narcotics. As one newspaper reported, officers said the two brothers were suspected in at least 2 gangland murders in the New Orleans area. Both had long FBI records. In 1949, narcotics officers arrested Gaetano in New Orleans as a fugitive from justice, after having jumped a deportation bond in 1945. Gaetano Gagliano's brother Giuseppe was deported to Italy in 1955. And, interestingly, Gaetano himself had been deported in 1953, but re-entered the US illegally in 1957. However, the authorities caught up with Gaetano Gagliano and deported him in 1959. As one newspaper reported, deported. Gaetano Gagliano, 52, was deported to his native Italy this week by the US Immigration Service upon his release from prison. It was the second deportation for Gagliano, whom the service described as a mafia leader. He re-entered this country illegally in 1957. And so you can see that it is New Orleans-based mobster Gaetano Gagliano who is often confused for being Tommaso Gagliano, the New York crime boss. Hence why you will often see books and documentaries erroneously referring to Tommaso Gagliano as Gaetano Gagliano, and using the wrong photo. The accepted photos of Tommaso Gagliano are the ones that I've used throughout this video, and I believe that these were from his passport applications. Historian J. Michael Niotta is the great-grandson of LA Cosa Nostra boss Jack Dragna. Before landing in Los Angeles, Jack Dragna had a criminal history on the East Coast in New York, and was close with Tommy Lucchese. Through researching his own heritage and going through some old family photos, historian J. Michael Niotta has been able to unearth some rare mob photos, such as this image of Tommy Lucchese's underboss Stefano La Salle on the left, with LA boss Jack Dragna in the middle, and Tommy Lucchese on the right. While going through the 1948 photos of his grandparents' wedding, an event in which Tommy Lucchese and Stefano La Salle both attended, historian J. Michael Niotta saw an individual stood behind Tommy Lucchese's daughter, who was the maid of honor. Niotta has posed the question, could this be an aging Tommaso Gagliano, a man who would pass away 3 years after this photo was taken? Let me know your thoughts on this in the comments below. I hope you found that interesting. Thanks for watching.